VON Radio from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
From the VON Newsline, this is the VON Major Newscast.
Good evening. I am Daniel Moore in with your VON Major News Package for today, Tuesday, February 18th, 2020. In our lead stories nationally, people have an opportunity to be a part of Nevis's governing body, so says CCM's candidate for constituency number 5, St. Thomas Parish. And SKNLP supporters stage protest outside Prime Minister's office. Regionally, parts of plane that crashed into the sea found in waters of Dominica's coast. Internationally, Bloomberg to join Democratic debate amid poll surge. And in sports, Bravo hits 100 as West Indies Open Tour of Sri Lanka. We'll have the details to these and other stories after this short break.
Another look.
Different from how you've seen it before.
Another look.
Takes an in-depth look into business, politics, science, technology, religion, and more.
Another look.
Featuring documentaries from the BBC, regional features, and local ones too.
Another look.
Every Monday at 3 p.m. on the Eastern Caribbean's powerhouse, Vaughan.
Welcome back, and now for the national news. The Concerned Citizens Movement, or CCM, candidate for constituency number 5, St. Thomas Parish, Mr. Keith Scarborough, has voiced his opinions in light of the imminent local by-elections slated Thursday, March 5th, 2020. Mr. Joseph Parry became the lone member of the opposition following the last local elections here on Nevis in December 2017. The island of Nevis has 5 seats, and CCM won 4 out of the 5, while the Nevis Reformation Party, or NRP, secured 1 seat. Mr. Parry tendered his letter to the Nevis Island Assembly, signaling his retirement from the Assembly and active politics, effective December 31st, 2019. Additionally, Chapter 4, the Legislature, Section 48 of St. Kitts and Nevis's Constitution states, where the seat of a member of the Assembly falls vacant otherwise than by reason of dissolution of the legislature, if vacant seat is of an elected member, a by-election shall be held to fill the vacancy within 90 days of the occurrence of the vacancy, unless the legislature is sooner dissolved. We spoke with Mr. Scarborough, who gave us these remarks.
I think this time round, his resignation has offered the people of St. Thomas's Parish a golden opportunity to be part of the governing body of Nevis, because the Concerned Citizens Movement already have 4 seats. It means then that they will be governing Nevis for the next almost 3 years. And this gives the people of St. Thomas's an opportunity to become part of that administration, part of that governing body, part of ensuring that they get the fair share, and of course that things are done in the area of St. Thomas's Parish through a representative that would have been inside the cabinet.
He also expressed his views in relation to the NRP's candidate, Mr. Cleone Stapleton Simmons. Mrs. Cleone Stapleton Simmons.
Myself and the NRP candidate wants the same thing for St. Thomas's. That is to develop the constituency, to help persons in the constituency. The difference is, a vote for me makes that possible. A vote for my opponent really doesn't go anywhere at all. It just places you in parliament and you really can't do anything. And I'm not faulting her or anything. It's just the way things are. You've got to be inside cabinet to be able to help persons. So while we both want the same thing, only one will have the opportunity, because a vote for me put me inside cabinet. A vote for her put her in parliament. And that's the major difference. And now she's the new kid on the block. We're quite good neighbors, get along very well. So there's nothing personal. This is one competition where the 2 persons get along well and there's absolutely no hard feeling between us. It's just the opportunity lies within voting for me.
CCM candidate for constituency number 5, St. Thomas Parish, Mr. Keith Scarborough. Just a quick correction, that is Mrs. Cleone Stapleton Simmons. On Monday, 18th February, SKNLP supporters staged a protest outside of the Prime Minister's office at Church Street, Bastyr, St. Kitts, one day after the anniversary celebrations of the Team Unity administration's 5th year in office. It is believed that the protests are due to the fact that elections has not yet been called. The last general elections were held in 2015. The VON News Line spoke with Deputy Leader of the SKNLP, the Honorable Marcella Liburd, who gave a comment regarding the protests.
Ordinary people the streets took it upon themselves. They were the ones who led it. And so I was really happy about that. 5 years have passed since government has been in office. And it seems as if they're making no efforts to call the elections. People are really frustrated, and we need to have the elections so that we can get rid of this government. I don't know what the whole up is all about. The last minute now we're hearing about boundary changes and all these other things. And then you wait until 2 months before an election to say you're putting boundaries commission together to go and change boundaries. So I think really, time is up and they expired. It's time for them to call the elections.
According to the SKN Constitution, an election shall be held within 90 days of the first sitting of the new parliament. Therefore, the current administration has until August 2020 to call the elections. Though no official date has been revealed, Prime Minister Dr. The Honorable Timothy Harris, during last week's sitting of Parliament, expressed his confidence that his administration will serve a second term when elections are held.
I am sure, based on performance, whether we call it for the 12th of August or earlier, the Team Unity administration will be returned. And I say to the people, to consolidate the gains of a functioning democracy, our people must ensure that we are returned. Not the same way. The polls are in fact indicating that we will be returned with an enhanced majority. I don't want to say all 11. I am saying return us as handsomely as we deserve and ensure we have a sufficient number to bring about fundamental reforms to constitutional amendment in the Constitution.
Dr. The Honorable Timothy Harris. St. Kitts recorded another accident on the island's main road on Monday, February 17th. According to the police, the driver of PA 7881 was traveling with a passenger towards Bastyr at around 10:45 a.m., but when the driver entered the Washgut area in Kayon, the said driver lost control of the vehicle, slid on the mountainside of the road, and overturned. Fortunately, there were no physical injuries, according to police, but one person was taken to the hospital. This comes almost 12 hours after an accident occurred on Sunday, February 16th at around 11:45 p.m. on Wellington Road, Bastyr. One person was said to be warded at the JNF General Hospital in St. Kitts in relation to that accident. 869 Moving in the Right Direction with God. That was the theme for Team Unity's gospel concert, which was held on Sunday, February 16th at the Greenlands Pasture, St. Kitts. Prime Minister Dr. The Honorable Timothy Harris, while addressing the patrons, thanked the electorate for having chosen them at the last general elections on February 16, 2015, when they gave Team Unity the mandate to run the government. Deputy Prime Minister the Honorable Sean Richards and the Honorable Vance Amory and the Honorable Ian Patches Liburd were present at the event. Governor General's Deputy, His Excellency Mr. Michael Morton and Mrs. Morton, Ambassadors His Excellency Michael Powell, His Excellency Sidney Osborne, and His Excellency Janelle Powell were also in attendance. Featured guest artist was Donnie McClurkin. He is the winner of 3 Grammy Awards and is one of the top-selling gospel music artists, selling over 10 million albums worldwide. Other acts include Miss Vanelle Powell out of Nevis, Euphony Praise, and Miss Lavine Hutchinson. The newest members of the Volunteer Corps engaged in their first activity, the National Elderly Luncheon for Senior Citizens at Government House on Volunteer Day, Saturday 15th February 2020. This comes days after a launching ceremony welcomed 175 young people, mostly from CFBC, into the Volunteer Corps. Prior to the launching ceremony of the new members of the Volunteer Corps, they underwent orientation skills training, exposing them to their requirements as members, soft skills training such as time management, and the value of volunteerism. At the National Elderly Luncheon, Minister of General Affairs, Community Development and Social Services, Senator the Honorable Wendy Phipps, extended words of encouragement to older persons throughout St. Kitts and Nevis to engage in more meaningful interactions with the wider public. She also highlighted the efforts of the volunteers participating at the function and also extended her gratitude to His Excellency Sir S.W. Tapley Seaton, Governor General of St. Kitts and Nevis, for opening up Government House as its venue. The initiative forms part of the Team Unity Administration's 5th anniversary calendar of activities from February to March 2020. Nevis Premier the Honorable Mark Brantley will host his monthly press conference next Thursday, February 27th at 10 a.m. Premier Brantley will also provide updates on matters of national interest at the forum. Members of the press will be afforded the opportunity to ask questions for the listening and viewing public. It will be held at the Cabinet Room on the 2nd floor of the Social Security Building at Penny's Estate here on Nevis. The press conference will be broadcast live here on Vaughan Radio 860 AM as well as vaughanradio.com. And finally, in our national news segment, a stretch of road constructed by the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation, or NHLDC, in Phase 2 at Cahoon Housing Development in Cahoon Estate here on Nevis, was officially commissioned at a ceremony on Thursday, February 13th. The project consists of a concrete road measuring approximately 1,140 feet long and 16 feet wide, with drainage, walkways, and entranceways. Work began in mid-October 2019 and was completed in late January 2020. The contractor was Mr. Calvert Herbert of Cotton Ground. Deputy Premier of Nevis and Minister of Lands and Housing in the Nevis Island Administration, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, while present at the ceremony, called for the support of the efforts of the NHLDC and wished the community of Cahoon Housing Development well. Among those present were Minister of Social Development, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, Minister of Communication and Works, the Honorable Spencer Brand, and directors of the NHLDC Board. That is the national news segment. You can visit our website at www.vaughanradio.com or check us out on Facebook at Vaughan Radio or our Vaughan Radio YouTube channel for these and other stories. News from across the region is next.
We know you have your personal as well as your business needs, and we're here to help. Our knowledgeable staff will work with you to help you achieve the financial success that you or your company needs in a competitive market. We offer solutions to make your banking experience easier, like our savings and checking accounts. Be sure to ask about our youth savers accounts and our Bank of Nevis Gold Club. We offer a wide range of personal loans, including mortgage, land, student, auto, and consumer loans. Have access to your funds instantly with our Online internet banking and our debit and credit cards. We make international banking and investing easy. How's your business? Give it the leverage it really needs by letting the Bank of Nevis assist you with all the necessary funding for all your business expenses. It's that easy. What are you waiting for? The Bank of Nevis Limited, improving the quality of life.
Like us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/The Bank of Nevis.
Welcome back, and now for the regional news. Out of Roseau, Dominica, rescue teams have found wreckage of a single-engine aircraft that crashed into the sea on leaving the Douglas Charles Airport in the northeast of the country on Sunday night, but have so far been unsuccessful in locating the bodies of any of the 4 people who are on board. Local fishermen who are assisting in the rescue operations showed reporters the landing gear of the Piper F-OGKO aircraft that was carrying the 4 unidentified people, including the 2 pilots, when it plunged into the sea at around 6:43 p.m. local time on Sunday evening. Part of the landing gear was found in waters as the search continues. Earlier, the Chief Executive Officer of the Dominica Air and Seaports Authority, or DASPA, Benoit Badwil, speaking on the state-owned DBS radio, said a bag and passport had been found and that the rescue teams had intensified their search in the waters of Marigot. According to nationnews.com, Mr. Badwil stated 4 souls are on that aircraft. What we are doing earnestly is to try to see how we can find the aircraft and the 4 souls that were on board. Earlier reports had indicated that the plane had crashed on its approach to the airport, but Badwil said the French-registered small Piper aircraft was given clearance to take off from the Douglas Charles Airport destined to Raizé Airport in Guadeloupe. Continuing out of Dominica, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit has been harshly criticized by some critics who say he was the main Caribbean leader pushing for the appointment of Commonwealth Secretary-General Dominica-born Baroness Scotland as a campaign to replace her threatens to descend into a race row. Scotland has been under pressure to resign, with the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson suspending Britain's £4.7 million annual grant to the Commonwealth Secretariat after claims of incompetence and cronyism were made against Baron. Former Attorney General Bernard Whitshire, who appeared as a guest on Dominica Observer Media's Big Issues program in Antigua and Barbuda on Sunday, is blaming Skerrit for what he said is the embarrassment that Scotland has brought to the Commonwealth. He said from all indications Scotland has no real interest in the Caribbean and claimed that Skerrit never cared about the solidarity of the region. This also comes as Scotland is lobbying African and Caribbean countries to back her remaining as Commonwealth Secretary-General. Lady Scotland, 64, is said to have accused Britain, Australia, and New Zealand of a racially motivated campaign against her after the countries withdrew discretionary funding from the Commonwealth Secretariat in response to an audit that exposed governance failings under her leadership. The first patient who was placed in isolation in Jamaica after returning from China having elevated temperature has tested negative for the novel coronavirus or COVID-19. Meantime, results from the Caribbean Public Health Agency or CARPHA are pending for a second person who was isolated, and a third Jamaican has been placed in isolation. The latest individual, who had traveled from China, arrived at the Donald Sangster International Airport last Tuesday, February 11th, and underwent relevant protocols in keeping with the current travel restrictions. The Jamaican was discovered to have had a fever and was immediately isolated, according to a statement from the Ministry of Health. This patient has been isolated in keeping with our protocols, whereby anyone who has traveled from China in the last 14 days prior to arrival and has symptoms will be isolated and investigations carried out, the ministry said. Still in regional news, amid the commencement of the CARICOM 31st Intersessional Heads of Government Conference in Barbados, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will not be meeting with the Caribbean leaders this week after all, choosing to remain at home to deal with a protest that is shutting down train service across the country. Mr. Trudeau had been scheduled to participate in the conference to further strengthen his government's partnership with the regional grouping. And finally, in our regional news segment, the Ministry of Health has moved to dispel reports of any confirmed cases of the novel coronavirus or COVID-19 in the country, as it confirmed that several people who recently traveled to China in the epicenter of the epidemic remain in quarantine, and 2 tests turn out negative. The ministry had reported on February 7th that a Vincentian returning from China had been placed in quarantine for 14 days, as recommended by the World Health Organization. That is the regional news segment. International news is up next. Welcome back, and now for the international news. Democratic presidential candidate and billionaire businessman Michael Bloomberg will take part in a nomination debate for the first time on Wednesday, his campaign confirmed. In order to take part in the Nevada debate, he had to poll above double digits in 4 national polls recognized by the Democratic Party. Earlier today, an NPR PBS NewsHour Marist poll found he had support from 19% of those surveyed. The ex-New York mayor is not competing in the first 4 nomination contests. Mr. Bloomberg, 78, has instead chosen to enter the race on March 3rd, known as Super Tuesday, when 14 states will vote. He came in second place in the NPR PBS NewsHour Marist poll. Bernie Sanders came in first with 31% support nationally, and Joe Biden was in third place with 15%. Mr. Bloomberg had been accused by rival candidates Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders of trying to buy the election. He denies claims and has offered to fund the Democratic effort to beat Republican President Donald Trump, even if he does not win the nomination. The aid operation in northeastern Syria is being overwhelmed as number of people displaced by the government offensive in Idlib rises, the UN said on Monday. Since early December, hundreds of thousands of people have been forced to flee, most of them women and children, it said.
International concern has been building over the plight of civilians in Idlib and western Aleppo. More than 900,000 people, mostly women and children, are believed to have been displaced in the past 3 months. Michelle Bachelet, the UN human rights chief, says she's horrified by the scale of the humanitarian crisis, describing it as unbelievably cruel that people are being bombed while living under scraps of plastic sheeting in the freezing weather. Syria says it's opened 2 ways out for people to escape rebel-held areas to those held by the government. But for many of the displaced, Idlib was already the end of the road.
Police in Costa Rica have made the biggest seizure of illegal drugs in the country's history, finding more than 5 tons of cocaine in a shipping container. The drugs were hidden in a consignment of flowers headed for the Netherlands, AFP news agency quoted Interior Minister Michael Soto Rojas as saying. A suspect has been arrested. Central America is one of the main routes for cartels, moving drugs from South America to the U.S. and Europe. When authorities searched a suspicious shipping container on Saturday, they discovered 202 suitcases containing a total of 5,048 packages of cocaine, weighing around 1 kilogram or 2.2 pounds each, AFP reports. The arrested suspect is a 46-year-old Costa Rican. And finally, in our international news segment, Chinese authorities have announced new incentives for healthcare staff working at the front lines of the coronavirus outbreak as the demand grows for more trained workers to battle the spread of the disease. Incentives include giving children of the frontline staff priority placements in schools and colleges. The authorities said they have also started to build another 10 makeshift hospitals. The BBC's correspondent Stephen MacDonald explains.
They're really battling in Wuhan and in Hubei province more generally. And there's a very different picture inside that province to the rest of China and obviously the rest of the world. I mean, in Wuhan city, they don't have enough beds. The teams there are exhausted. It's why they've flown in thousands of extra medics from the military to try and bolster the effort. It's why they've built 2 massive new wards to put people into quarantine. It's why they're using gymnasiums as quarantine centers.
China's latest official figures released on Tuesday put the overall death toll at 1,868 and 72,436 infections. That is the international news segment. Sports is up next.
everything your business needs. Superior copy and printing services, business equipment and furniture, and a wide array of renting materials for all occasions. TDC Business Center, providing solutions that work.
Welcome back, and now on to sports. In cricket, Darren Bravo marked his return with a stroke-filled century as West Indies had their first warm-up match on the ongoing tour against Sri Lanka Cricket 11 on Monday at the Pisara Oval. The experienced left-hander hit 14 fours and a 6 in an even 100 before he retired. He faced just 88 balls and played a number of powerful shots on both sides of the wicket, but particularly eye-catching, driving through the covers. His effort helped the West Indies post 282 all out of 48.4 overs. The score, however, wasn't enough, as Sri Lanka 11 made 238 for 8 off 47.3 overs. Bravo shared in two crucial partnerships as the West Indies batsman looked to get valuable time in the middle ahead of the ODI series, which starts on Saturday. He added 113 with Sunil Ambrice, who made 41 off 63 balls with 6 boundaries. After Ambrice fell, Nicholas Pooran joined Bravo, and the pair left-handers dominated the bowling with a stand of 79 in just 12 overs. Pooran, who made his maiden international century against Sri Lanka last year's World Cup, scored 41 off 38 balls with 2 fours and 2 huge sixes. The back end, Fabian Allen, 28, and Jason Holder, 22, played cameos to boost the total. Meanwhile, Leeward's Hurricanes suffered yet another defeat, this time at the hands of Jamaica Scorpions, as round 5 of the regional cricket tournament concluded on Sunday, 16th February. Summarized scores were Jamaica 365 and 137 for 5, Leeward's 277 and 294. In local sports, the Under-20 Junior Basketball League in St. Kitts continued on Thursday, February 13th, and featured the Jayhawks and the NABA Chargers. The scores were Jayhawks beat the NABA Chargers 80 to 78 points. In cricket, the St. Lucia Zouks have been sold to a group of investors with extensive experience in high-profile cricket, says principals of the Hero Caribbean Premier League, or CPL. According to a media release issued on Monday, KPH Dream Cricket Private Limited is based in India and has knowledgeable owners who have a track record of success and on and off the field in major events. They will bring a huge amount of experience to the tournament and to the St. Lucian team. That's it for sports. The latest weather forecast is next. The weather tonight, partly cloudy with a 30% or low chance of showers. The weather tomorrow, partly sunny and hazy with a 40% or moderate chance of showers mainly in the afternoon. Winds east with speeds ranging between 22 to 37 kilometers per hour or 12 to 20 knots. Seas 1.8 to 2.4 meters or 6 to 8 feet. A small craft caution is in effect mainly for open waters on the eastern side of the island. Sunrise tomorrow 6:36 a.m., sunset tomorrow 6:14 p.m. And that's how we wrap up the major news package for today, Tuesday, February 18th, 2020. Before we go, let's take a look at the headlines once again. Nationally, people have an opportunity to be a part of Nevis's governing body, so says CCM's candidate for constituency number 5, St. Thomas Parish. And SKNLP supporters stage protest outside Prime Minister's office. Regionally, parts of plane that crashed into the sea found in waters off Dominica's coast. Internationally, Bloomberg joined Democratic debate amid poll surge. And in sports, Bravo hits 100 as West Indies open tour of Sri Lanka. On behalf of the rest of the news team, I am Daniel Moore, wishing you a pleasant evening.